On a glowing Christmas Eve, while laughter filled the streets, one small girl stood freezing behind a glass window, terrified to step inside. When Keanu Reeves saw her eyes through the falling snow, he made a silent decision that would change two lives forever. But what happened next, no one inside that store ever saw coming. Before we continue this incredible story, let us know where you're watching from. If you enjoy stories like this, subscribe to the channel, because tomorrow we have another inspiring story you won't want to miss. Christmas Eve settles over the city like a soft blanket of light and sound. Snow drifts down in slow, quiet spirals, catching on street lamps, window ledges, car roofs, and the shoulders of hurried strangers. Music spills from open doors and passing cars, cheerful and warm. Laughter rides the cold air. Inside a grand Christmas display store, everything glows. A towering tree rises at the center, wrapped in gold ribbon and white lights that shimmer like stars. Ornaments sparkle with every movement. Families crowd the aisles. Parents carry boxes of ornaments and bags of gifts. Children press their palms to the glass cases, pointing at toy trains, glittering angels, and rows of bright red stockings. The store smells of pine cinnamon and warm air. It is loud with happiness. It is heavy with comfort. Just beyond the glass, in the narrow strip of sidewalk brushed by falling snow, a small girl stands alone. She is about 9 years old, maybe younger. Her coat is too thin for the night and torn at the sleeve where the fabric has frayed into soft white threads. One shoe is laced tight, the other loosely tied, the soles uneven. Her fingers are stiff and purple from the cold as she hugs a cracked doll to her chest. One of the doll's plastic eyes is missing, leaving a dark hollow that stares into nothing. The girl's hair is tangled and dusted with melting snow. Her cheeks are red from the wind. She does not cry. She does not knock. She does not move closer. She simply watches. Her breath rises in short clouds and fades against the glass as quickly as it appears. Each warm, fogged circle vanishes before she can draw another. Inside, a little boy laughs as his mother lifts him to place a star on the top shelf display. A girl in a red scarf spins in front of a mirror, pretending she is dancing. The homeless girl's eyes follow the tree inside, not the people. The lights hypnotize her. The gifts stacked beneath it look like a mountain she could never climb. The warmth presses against the glass like a promise that does not belong to her. The window holds two worlds only inches apart, yet farther than any distance she has ever known. Snow gathers at her feet, silent and patient, as if the night itself is waiting for change. Tonight, she shifts her weight from one foot to the other, the cold biting through the thin soles of her shoes as snow melts into dark, wet circles around her toes. The doll is pressed tight against her ribs, a habit learned from nights when the wind tried to steal heat from her chest. She does not shiver loudly. She has learned how to keep the shaking inside. The glass in front of her reflects the Christmas lights across her face, soft gold and white, flickering over skin, made dull by hunger and cold. Inside, a woman laughs as a cashier wraps a tall box with silver paper. Ribbon slides through practiced fingers. The girl outside watches the ribbon curl and fall like a secret language she does not know. She wonders what it feels like to have something that is only yours. The sound of a bell rings every time the store door opens, letting out a brief breath of heat that brushes her face before vanishing behind closing glass. Each time the warm air touches her, her fingers tighten around the doll as if she might catch the warmth and keep it. People pass behind her on the sidewalk, boots crunching softly through thin snow. Some glance at her for half a second before looking away. Others never see her at all. She no longer expects them to. Her eyes drift back to the tree. It feels bigger tonight, brighter, heavier with light. She imagines the smell of pine filling her lungs, imagines fingers that are not stiff with cold touching the smooth ornaments. A quiet wish stirs inside her, small and dangerous, because wishing has always been expensive. She lowers her gaze when a group of children rush past her into the store, scarves flying, laughter sharp and bright. None of them notice the girl standing perfectly still. For a moment, she considers stepping closer to the door. Just one step. The thought tightens her chest. The glass feels thicker, suddenly heavier than stone. She stays where she is, rooted to the cold sidewalk, breathing slow, watching joy flicker inches away like a world she was never meant to enter. Snow lands on her lashes, melting into warm drops that slide down without a sound. She blinks, steadying herself, eyes lifting once more to the unreachable glow holding her place against the night that presses in from side. The crowd inside shifts and swells like a living tide, bodies moving in warm currents beneath golden light, while outside the girl remains a still shadow pressed against winter. A pair of parents bend to listen to their child's excited whisper. A clerk lifts a glittering angel from a shelf and places it gently into a box, as if it were fragile joy itself. The girl watches every motion with careful attention, memorizing things she may never touch. Her arms ache from holding the doll so tightly, but she does not loosen her grip. The cracked face presses cold against her throat. Snow thickens for a moment, blurring the lights into soft halos that wobble and stretch like stars drifting out of reach. A gust of wind sneaks through the narrow street and slips beneath her coat, stealing the last bit of warmth from her back. She stiffens but does not step away. The store door opens again, and laughter spills out rich and loud, followed by the scent of warm air and pine. For a single heartbeat, her breath catches in the warmth, and her body leans forward without her meaning to. Then the door closes. The warmth seals itself inside. The sound dulls. The scent fades. The world returns to cold glass and quieter breathing. She looks at her reflection now, faintly layered over the Christmas tree inside. For a moment, she almost looks like she belongs in the picture. The illusion breaks as soon as she moves. Her reflection shifts away from the lights, and she is once again only the girl outside. A thin line of melted snow trickles down the window where her breath has touched it again and again. The line curves, then vanishes, as if even the smallest trace of her presence is being erased by warmth she cannot enter. Her stomach tightens with hunger, but she ignores it. Hunger is familiar. The ache in her chest is not. That ache comes from watching something beautiful exist without her in it. The tree inside glows brighter as more lights flick on. The girl's eyes sting again, but no tears fall. She has learned how to keep those, too. Around her, the city continues its celebration. Distant music echoing between buildings, bells chiming somewhere far down the street. Snow continues to fall steady and quiet, covering footprints almost as soon as they form. Soon, there will be no sign that she ever stood here at all, just another clean layer of white over cold concrete. Still, she does not move away from the glass. She stands at the edge of two worlds, one filled with laughter and light, the other wrapped in silence and cold, unaware that both worlds are about to change in ways she cannot yet imagine. She learned early that questions were dangerous. The first time she asked for help, the answer came as silence and a door that never opened. After that, she trained herself to need less sound, less hope, less hunger showing on her face. Each night, she returns to the same narrow space behind a closed bakery, where warm air leaks from a vent near the ground. The metal grate hums softly, the closest thing she has to a lullaby. She curls beside it with her back to cold brick, and her feet tucked under her hips to trap what little warmth slips out. Some nights she eats the end of a loaf left in a paper bag. Other nights there is nothing. She tells herself it is normal. Hunger has become a clock inside her, something that marks time instead of fear. The cracked doll rests under her chin when she sleeps. It once belonged to her mother. She remembers that much clearly. Her mother's hands placed it in her arms on a morning when the sun was bright, and promises felt heavy with meaning. She remembers being told they would have a tree one day, a real one. With lights, with stars, she remembers believing that promise with the full weight of her small heart. After that, memory breaks into drifting pieces, voices raised, a street too loud, hands that slipped away. She does not know where her mother is now. She only knows she has not returned. The doll is all that remains of that promise. When she stands outside the glass tonight, the tree inside pulls at that old memory like a thread. The lights are almost the same as the ones she was told about. Warm, soft, alive. For a moment, she imagines herself clean again, hands pink instead of purple, hairbrushed shoes that match. She imagines sitting inside where breath does not hurt. In her imagination, she belongs. The thought is sweet enough to scare her. Belonging has always been something that disappears when she reaches for it. The door is right there, only a few steps away. She knows how to knock. She knows how to speak. But she also knows what usually comes next. A look, a shake of the head, a word that sends her back into the cold. So she stays where she is. Asking is a risk she cannot. The city has taught her its rules without ever speaking them out loud. Stand too close to a doorway and someone will tell you to move. Ask for food too directly and eyes will harden before mouths do. Look hopeful for too long and disappointment will arrive like an answer that never needed to be spoken. So she has learned to be quiet in every way a person can be quiet. Quiet with her voice, quiet with her hands, quiet with her eyes. Even now, standing outside the glowing Christmas store, her wanting is careful, folded inward, where no one can see it. She does not let herself imagine walking across that floor and feeling it warm beneath her feet. She does not let herself imagine a hand reaching out to guide her closer to the tree. Those thoughts live too close to pain. The bakery vent behind her sleeping place comes back to her mind as she watches families inside. The smell of burnt sugar and bread crust. The constant low hum of heat she lies beside at night. It is not comfort, but it keeps her alive. Some mornings she wakes with crumbs in her pocket from kindness left without a face. Other mornings she wakes with nothing and pretends she is not hungry until the dizziness passes. She has learned how to move through the day so that hunger looks like patience. She has learned how to keep her eyes low when people pass so their guilt does not turn into anger. Tonight, she stands outside the glass with the same careful posture. Thin shoulders pulled inward, chin slightly lowered. The doll held high enough to shield her chest. The doll was once soft. Now its fabric is worn smooth, and its stuffing shifts when she presses it. Its missing eye does not frighten her. Broken things feel familiar. As she watches the children inside, she notices their hands more than their faces. Hands reaching into shopping bags, hands tugging sleeves, hands lifting each other toward light, hands that do not need to protect themselves from cold or from being taken. Her own fingers ache as the cold tightens around the bones. She flexes them slowly so she does not lose feeling. The Christmas tree inside stands like a promise that someone else gets to keep. She remembers being told once that one day there would be a tree just for her, that it would mean they had made it, that it would mean they were safe. She does not remember who said it anymore. She only remembers believing it. The tree inside the glass feels like that promise standing upright in front of her and refusing to answer. The door might as well be a wall. She already believes she knows what would happen if she touched the handle. So she does not. She stands still, silently negotiating with a hope she pretends not to carry. The memory of her mother comes and goes like the warmth from the bakery vent, brief and unreliable. Sometimes she remembers a voice singing softly while fixing her hair. Sometimes she remembers a tired smile that tried to hide fear. Sometimes there is nothing at all, just an empty space where answers should live. She has stopped searching that space because it only makes the night feel longer. The doll fills that space instead. It listens without asking. It stays without promising. On colder nights, she presses its cracked face against her cheek and pretends it is warm. The promise of the tree is stitched into that silence. She was told it would mean safety, that it would mean they had turned a corner, that it would mean a new beginning. Now she stands outside a real one and feels the sting of a beginning that never came. Inside the store, a child presses his nose to the glass from the other side and laughs at the fog he makes. The girl notices and quickly wipes her own breath marks away with her sleeve, ashamed of leaving proof that she is here. She does not want to be seen wanting. Wanting invites questions. Questions lead to answers she already knows. She has watched enough doors close to understand the pattern. If she looks too small, she will be pitied. If she looks too old, she will be judged. If she looks too hopeful, she will be disappointed. So she looks like nothing at all, just another shadow on a cold sidewalk. The idea of stepping inside feels heavier than the cold itself. Inside would mean being noticed. Inside would mean being asked where she came from. Inside would mean explaining things she cannot explain. Outside, she controls the silence. Outside, nothing is expected of her. Yet the tree keeps pulling at her, tugging at a part of her that is not made of fear. She imagines sitting beneath it, the lights reflecting in the dull surface of the doll's one remaining eye. She imagines heat on her face that does not disappear with the closing of a door. She imagines hands that lift her without shoving her aside. Each image arrives and hurts in the same breath, so she sends them away as soon as they form. She rocks slightly on her heels to keep herself awake. Sleep would make the cold dangerous. The music from inside filters through the glass as a distant echo. The sound does not reach her all the way. It fades before it can touch her, the way warmth does. She looks at the door again, then at her feet, then at the tree one more time, as if memorizing it for the nights ahead. She does not take a step forward. She does not take a step back. She remains exactly where she is, believing that not asking is the only way she knows how to survive. Snow creaks softly beneath his boots as he moves with the steady, unhurried pace of someone who does not feel chased by time. A dark coat hangs from his shoulders, dusted with white along the seams. Steam curls faintly from the lid of the coffee cup held between his hands, the warmth seeping slowly into stiff fingers. The street hums around him with voices, passing cars, and distant music, yet he carries a quiet space with him that no noise seems to reach. Christmas lights stretch in long glowing lines above the road, reflected in shop windows and puddles of melted snow. He does not rush toward any destination. He rarely does. Christmas has never been loud inside him. It arrives each year with a slow, reflective weight. Not heavy with pain, not bright with excitement, but wrapped in memory. The kind of memory that moves gently like old snow, falling again in another season. Faces from the past drift through his thoughts without warning. Laughter that once filled rooms. Voices that no longer answer. Loss that has softened with time but never disappeared. He does not push these thoughts away. He has learned to walk beside them without falling. As he passes the glowing Christmas display store, he barely looks at it at first. The warm light is familiar to him, almost expected on a night like this. He has learned to see beauty without grasping at it. His gaze moves forward, following the open street until something small and still near the glass catches at the edge of his vision. A shape that does not move with the crowd. A shadow that does not shift with the lights. He slows without realizing he has done so. His head turns slightly. Through the bright reflection of the towering tree inside the store, he sees her. A small figure standing alone on the cold sidewalk. Her coat too thin, her posture careful. Both arms wrapped tightly around a cracked doll held against her chest. The way she stands is what strikes him first. Not fully facing the door, not fully turned away, balanced in the narrow space between wanting and retreat. He notices her hands next, purple with cold, fingers locked tight, as if loosening them might cause something important to slip away. Then their eyes meet, only for a moment, only through layers of glass, falling snow, and reflected light. His dark silhouette merges with the glowing tree behind him in her vision. Her small face floats faintly across the brightness in his. In that half second, the street noise feels distant. The past inside him quiets. The memory drifting through his chest pauses. Something unspoken moves between them, not as a thought, not as a decision, but as recognition. He slows to a near stop as the moment stretches longer than it should, as if the world itself has leaned in to listen. The warmth of the coffee cup seeps deeper into his palms, yet his attention is no longer on the heat. It is fixed on the space between the girl and the door behind her. He sees how carefully she keeps her distance, how her feet are angled not toward the entrance, but slightly away, ready to retreat. That small detail tells him more than words ever could. He recognizes that posture. It belongs to those who have learned that stepping forward often leads to being pushed back. Christmas lights ripple across the glass, washing over her face in soft gold, then fading again as passing cars send shadows sliding over her features. The doll in her arms presses so tightly against her chest that it looks like part of her, not something she is holding, but something she is sheltering. The missing eye does not escape his notice. Neither does the way her shoulders lift just a little higher each time the store door opens and the warmth spills out before vanishing. It reminds him of how quickly comfort can appear and disappear in a life. He takes one slow step forward without breaking eye contact, then stops himself. He does not want to frighten her. He knows how fragile moments like this can be, how easily they can shatter if handled too loudly. Around him, people weave past, carrying laughter shopping bags, wrapped boxes, and heavy coats filled with heat. None of them notice the silence standing between the girl and the glass. That silence feels thick to him now, heavier than the falling snow. He feels memory stir again, not sharp, not painful, but insistent. The quiet memory of being young and standing outside something warm, something promised, something unreachable. He cannot place the memory fully yet. It presses against him with familiar weight. He exhales slowly, breath fogging the air in front of his face, and that soft cloud drifts toward the glass where her breath has already faded again and again. For a second, their breath marks overlap as pale shapes on the window, then dissolve. The city noise swells again around him, engines, passing voices, rising bells chiming down the block. Still, he does not move on. Something has anchored him to this spot. He lifts his gaze for a final glance at the glowing tree inside the store, at the children gathered beneath it, at the easy warmth filling the space. Then his eyes return to the girl. Her gaze flickers with uncertainty now, as if she is afraid of being seen for too long. She tightens her grip on the doll as though bracing herself for whatever comes next. He knows that look too. It is the look of someone preparing for disappointment before it arrives. He holds her gaze a moment longer, then gently lowers his eyes as if to say he will not force it. The moment breaks softly rather than sharply, and yet it leaves a weight behind. He shifts his grip on the coffee cup, feeling the heat through the lid, as if reminding himself that warmth still exists in his hands, even when it cannot reach everyone. The girl's eyes drop for a brief second, then lift again, uncertain, measuring him, the way the world has taught her to measure strangers. He sees that hesitation clearly. It is not fear alone. It is calculation shaped by survival. He stands there tall and quiet, among the moving crowd, feeling the weight of that calculation settle against his chest. Christmas lights overhead continue to shimmer, reflecting in the falling snow, but his attention has narrowed to only what stands outside the glass. He becomes aware of how alone she truly is, not just in distance, but in belonging. The people around him brush past, without slowing, scarves trailing, voices raised in easy laughter, wrapped in the safety of destinations waiting for them. He remains still, as if moving too quickly might break something fragile in the air. The girl shifts her stance again, snow crunching softly beneath one thin shoe. The doll's cracked face tilts slightly as she adjusts her grip, the hollow of its missing eye catching a reflection from the tree inside. For an instant, that empty space gleams with light, and something tightens behind his ribs at the small, accidental beauty of it. He is struck by how quiet suffering can be, how neatly it hides itself between moments of celebration. His breath slows. A decision begins forming, not as a plan, not as words, but as a subtle turning inside his chest. He feels it the way one feels the direction of the wind before it becomes strong. The girl does not know this. All she sees is a man standing too long in the cold, watching her through the glass. Her shoulders draw inward a little more. She prepares herself for the familiar ending where someone looks, then leaves. He senses that preparation in her posture. That is when he finally moves not toward her, not away from her, but slightly sideways, as if to release her from the pressure of his attention. His eyes leave hers and lift once more toward the glowing tree inside the store. His reflection overlaps with the lights, blending him back into the brightness she has been watching from the outside. To her, it may look like he has already chosen to go on. To him, it feels like the moment just before a door quietly opens unseen by anyone else on the street. The girl does not smile when their eyes meet again. There is no relief in her face, no sudden warmth, only a quiet mixture of longing and caution that sits just beneath the surface. It is the look of someone who allows herself to hope only in the smallest, safest way. Her chin lifts slightly, just enough to keep him in view, just enough to see what kind of ending this moment might choose. Keanu feels something slow inside his chest, as if time itself has taken a careful breath. The music drifting out of the store fades into a distant hum. The laughter becomes muffled like sound underwater. All he hears clearly now is the soft rush of blood in his ears and the faint whisper of snow landing on fabric and skin. He notices the purple shade of her fingers as they tighten around the doll. He notices how the wind teases loose strands of her hair and lifts them for a second before letting them fall back against her cold cheek. He notices the way her knees stay locked, the way her weight barely shifts, how long she has been standing in exactly this spot without moving. It tells him she has been waiting for something without believing it will come. The glass between them feels thinner now, not in matter but in meaning. For a breath, neither of them moves. The street seems to hold still with them. Then he looks down slowly, as if breaking eye contact too quickly might shatter what little steadiness she has. He steps toward a short stone ledge near the window and gently places his coffee cup on its edge. The steam rises into the falling snow and vanishes almost at once. He straightens, turns on his heel, and walks back toward the store entrance without looking over his shoulder. There is no signal in his movement, no explanation, no promise offered in words, only the quiet certainty of a man who has decided something and does not need an audience for it. The girl watches him go with eyes that do not change at first. She follows the line of his coat as it blends into the warm reflection of lights and glass. She watches the door open for him and swallow him into brightness. When it closes again, sealing warmth back inside, the sound lands dull in her ears. Her grip tightens reflexively around the doll. The small flicker of hope she never meant to show retreats quickly back under its shell of caution. To her, it feels familiar. Another stranger who paused, another stranger who moved on. She exhales slowly, breath blooming against the glass one more time before fading, and tells herself that this is how moments usually end. The cold creeps back into her awareness once he is gone, seeping into the spaces the moment briefly warmed. The store's glow no longer seems to reach as far as it did before. She stares at the door, where he disappeared, half expecting him to turn back, half knowing he will not. She has seen that ending too many times to let herself linger in the middle of it. Her shoulders sink a little as the quiet settles again around her. The city rush resumes its careless rhythm. Boots pass behind her. A burst of laughter spills from a passing couple. Somewhere down the street, bells ring for reasons that have nothing to do with her. Inside the glass, a child presses his hands against the window and laughs at the fog they make. She shifts slightly so her own breath marks will not overlap with his. She does not want her longing to be seen pressed beside someone else's joy. Her fingers ache from the cold, but she keeps holding the doll just as tightly. Letting go feels unsafe. Letting go feels like the first step toward losing what little she still owns. The wind lifts again, sharper, now sliding beneath her coat and along her spine. She flinches but does not move away from the window. The tree inside still glows, stubborn and bright. She tells herself that watching it is enough, that this is as close as she is meant to come. The stranger with the quiet eyes is already being folded back into memory, placed beside all the others who looked and kept walking. She does not assign meaning to him. She does not wonder who he is. Wondering opens doors that never seem to lead anywhere. Still, something unsettled lingers after he leaves, like the hush that stays behind after a sudden sound stops. She cannot name it. She does not try to. She only knows that the air feels different than it did a moment ago, heavier somehow, as if the night is holding its breath. She rocks faintly on her heels to keep warm gaze returning to the tree as she prepares herself to stay until the cold pushes her away, or sleep becomes too dangerous to resist. Whatever she felt when he stood there is already being packed away. Hope is folded small where it cannot be seen. Disappointment feels safer when it arrives expected. She tells herself it is over, just another passing moment in a long night made of them, and yet her eyes drift back to the spot where he stood, as if something there has not finished speaking. The glass shows only her reflection now, small and dim, against the flood of light inside. The warmth feels farther away, again almost imagined. She adjusts her stance, one thin shoe scraping softly against the sidewalk as she shifts her weight to ease the ache in her legs. Snow gathers along the edge of the stone ledge where he left the cup, a thin white outline forming around the dark shape of it. She does not notice the cup yet. She is too busy putting her feelings back into the careful order that keeps her safe. Hope goes in one corner, flattened and tucked away. Curiosity follows, pressed down until it barely takes up space. Disappointment is allowed to stay where it always does, at the surface. She has never let herself keep more than she can carry. The Christmas music inside swells and fades as shoppers move past hidden speakers. A woman laughs too loudly. A child cries briefly before being comforted. Life continues on its warm, crowded path without touching her. She watches a man kneel inside to speak to a little girl at eye level, and something twists sharply in her chest before she looks away. That picture belongs to another world. The cold tightens around her hands again, creeping into her fingers with slow persistence. She rubs one thumb over the fabric of the doll's dress, worn thin and smooth from years of the same motion. The doll does not judge her for hoping then stopping. It never has. She breathes out slowly, steadying herself the way she always does when the night feels too long. The store door opens again for someone else, sending a rush of warmth across the sidewalk, and she feels it brush her ankle before it disappears. For a heartbeat, she almost turns to glance at the ledge beside the window, drawn by a faint shape in her peripheral vision. But she stops herself. Looking for signs has only ever made things harder. She lowers her chin and fixes her attention back on the tree, memorizing its lights the way she once memorized promises. In her mind, she already begins preparing for the walk back to the bakery vent when her legs grow too stiff to stand. She does not know that something small has been left behind for her in the snow, waiting for her to notice. She only knows that the stranger is gone, the warmth is still locked behind glass, and the night is carrying on exactly as it always has, or so she believes. Warm air wraps around him the moment he steps back inside the store, carrying the layered scents of pine cinnamon fabric and fresh cardboard. The door closes softly behind him, sealing out the cold and the street noise. Yet his attention remains fixed on what he left outside the glass. He does not pause to look around as the other shoppers do. He moves with quiet purpose through the aisles, boots soundless against the polished floor. He passes racks of glittering ornaments without slowing. He passes shelves stacked with elaborate decorations and towering artificial trees without lifting his hand. He is not searching for fantasy. He is searching for warmth. His gaze settles on a row of children's winter coats, thick and padded, hanging in neat lines by size. He runs his fingers lightly along the fabric until he finds one small enough, dark and simple, lined with fleece, the kind meant to hold heat without drawing attention. He lifts it from the rack and drapes it over his arm as if it already belongs to someone waiting. A few steps later, he stops at a display of gloves and chooses a pair small enough to fit thin hands, soft inside, plain on the outside. He adds them quietly to the growing weight on his arm. He moves on to the small refrigerated counter near the back where boxed meals are stacked for last-minute shoppers. The steam escaping from one corner draws his eye. He selects a hot meal without hesitation, the kind that fills both hands when held, the kind that sends warmth upward through fingers and into the chest. He does not check the label. The smell is enough. Finally, he slows beside a modest shelf at the edge of the holiday section where small tabletop Christmas trees are lined up. They are simple. No extravagant lights, no towering height, just compact green branches, steady and real. He picks one up and feels its weight testing its balance in his hands. This one will stand on its own without falling. This one will not ask for much space. He nods once and adds it to his quiet collection. At the counter, he speaks in a low voice to the clerk, his words lost beneath the hum of the store. There is no discussion, no questions asked loudly, no attention drawn. A receipt slides across the surface. A pen returns. A bag is filled carefully, the tree wrapped separately to protect its shape. The transaction ends as cleanly as it begins. At the same moment outside, the girl shifts her weight again, one numb foot pressing against the other to chase warmth that does not come. The stranger has been gone longer than she expected him to be. The quiet inside her tightens. She tells herself she waited too long. She tells herself the cold is winning. Her shoulders sag as she prepares to turn away, rehearsing the walk back to the bakery vent in her mind, telling herself that watching the tree was enough for one night. The warmth inside the store does not soften his focus. It only sharpens it. He moves with the same quiet steadiness, past shelves of scarves and stacks of folded sweaters, colors blurring together under light that feels almost too bright after the street. He does not rush, yet he does not wander. Each step is deliberate. The gloves are already secured in the bag. The coat rests folded with care. The meal is still warm against the side of the package. He adjusts his grip on the small tree, making sure its branches are not crushed. Around him, shoppers laugh and call softly to one another, arms full of gifts for people who are close and known. A child tugs at her father's sleeve, pointing toward a display of bright ornaments shaped like stars. The father bends and listens. That simple scene passes through his vision without pulling him away from his purpose. He is aware of the contrast, but he does not linger in it. He trusts the direction his chest has already chosen. At the counter, the clerk glances at the items with a brief flicker of curiosity, then looks at him again. He offers only a small, polite nod in return. There is no story, given no reason shared. The clerk wraps the items with gentle care, as if the bag itself understands that it will be carried into the cold. Paper rustles softly. The small tree is slid into a long sleeve to protect its shape. The bag is tied with patient fingers. When he lifts it, the weight is light in pounds, but heavy with meaning. Outside, time stretches for the girl in a different way. Each moment feels longer now than it did before. She watches the door open for others and close again, the breath of warmth brushing her ankles, then pulling away like a tease. She shifts again, knees stiff, and glances down the street in the direction she will soon walk. The stone ledge beside the glass is dusted with a fresh line of snow. She still has not noticed the dark cup resting on its edge. Her fingers burn and then go strangely quiet with cold. The doll is pressed harder against her coat as if it can share its imagined warmth with her. The stranger has been gone too long. She knows the rhythm of these moments. Pauses end. People move on. She adjusts the strap of the bag slung over her shoulder, the small bag that holds everything she owns, and steels herself for the turn that will carry her away from the window and back into the quiet of the night. The bag settles more firmly in his hand as he turns from the counter, the slight swing of it brushing against his leg with each step. The warmth of the meal seeps faintly through the paper and into his palm. The small tree rests upright inside its sleeve, steady and patient. He does not look back at the aisles as he walks. The colors and lights no longer hold him. His path is already drawn beyond the glass. The door ahead reflects the street in blur and gold. With every step toward it, he feels the quiet urgency tighten not as pressure, but as certainty. Outside, the girl inhales slowly, preparing herself for the walk away. Her breath fogs the glass one last time, and she watches it fade as if practicing how to disappear just as quietly. She shifts the doll under one arm so she can slide her colder hand into the thin pocket of her coat, searching for the last bit of warmth tucked there. Her shoulders turn a fraction away from the window. The tree inside drifts to the edge of her vision, now no longer centered. That small movement makes everything feel final. She tells herself it is time. Inside, leather meets polished floor as he reaches the door. The bell above it is still. He places his hand on the handle without hesitation. Outside, her foot lifts slightly toe, angling toward the direction she always goes. The cold catches at the exposed skin between her sock and shoe, as if urging her onward. For a breath, both of them pause on opposite sides of the same glass. He, with a bag filled with warmth and quiet intention. She, with a body tired of standing still and a heart trained not to ask. The door is about to open. The bell is about to ring. She does not hear what is coming yet. She only feels the cold pressing harder at her back as she prepares to leave the light behind once more, unaware that the moment she is turning away from is the very one that is turning toward her. The bell above the door rings softly as it opens a light, clear sound that slips into the cold night before fading. Warmth pours out for a brief second, brushing the sidewalk, then the door swings shut again. Keanu steps back into the snow with the bag held steady in both hands. The cold touches his face instantly, sharp but familiar. He does not look around for anyone else. His eyes find the girl at once. She has already begun to turn away, one foot angled toward the street, her shoulders drawn in as if preparing to disappear. He walks straight toward her without hesitation, careful not to move too quickly. The snow crunches softly beneath his steps. She senses movement and stiffens her grip, tightening around the doll as she turns back in alarm. He slows further and then lowers himself down until he is at her eye level, keeping his voice gentle and low so it does not cut through the night too sharply. The street noise continues around them, but the space between them grows quiet. He does not reach out at first. He lets her see. His face lets her see his hands are empty and open. The fear in her eyes flickers, uncertain, ready to rise. Then he slowly lifts the coat from the bag. The fabric is thick, dark, simple. He holds it up where she can see it clearly, giving her time to understand what he is offering. She does not move. Her mind searches for the familiar ending, the one where kindness pretends and then vanishes. He shifts slightly closer and drapes the coat gently around her shoulders, wrapping it as if he has done it 100 times before. The weight of it settles against her back. The lining touches her frozen arms. The warmth hits her all at once, not gradually, but like a wave that she forgot her body could still feel. Her breath stutters. Her shoulders lift instinctively, startled by the sensation. Heat spreads from her skin inward. Her fingers loosen without her meaning them to. The doll slips a little lower against her chest. Her eyes widen not with fear now, but with disbelief. He does not rush the moment. He lets her feel the change. Then he reaches into the bag again and lifts out the hot boxed meal, careful to keep it balanced. Steam leaks from the edge. The smell reaches her before the warmth. Her stomach tightens sharply in response. He holds the box out to her, not pushing it into her hands, just offering it. She hesitates, eyes darting from the food to his face and back again. Taking things has always come with a cost. Her fingers twitch but do not lift. Only when he gives a small, reassuring smile, steady and unforced, does she finally reach out. Her hand wraps around the warm edge of the box. The heat makes her inhale sharply again. Something inside her shifts, just a little. For the first time that night, she does not feel like she is standing outside of everything. She feels seen. Her fingers curl more firmly around the box as the warmth seeps into her palms, traveling up her arms in slow, trembling waves. She stares at the food as if it might vanish if she looks directly at it for too long. The smell is rich and real, nothing like the cold scraps she sometimes finds behind dumpsters. Her body reacts before her thoughts can catch up. Her stomach tightens again, louder this time, and the sound makes her flinch with embarrassment. She lowers her gaze quickly as if afraid he might take the meal back if he hears it. But he does not move. He remains there at her level, steady, quiet, letting the moment unfold at its own pace. The coat is already trapping heat against her back and shoulders. She shifts slightly inside it, surprised by how heavy and safe it feels at the same time. The fabric is soft against her neck. It does not itch. It does not slip. It stays. She has not worn something that fits her in a long time. Her arms move slowly as she adjusts the sleeves, the motion careful and unsure, like she is touching something she does not yet believe belongs to her. The doll is now wedged between the coat and her chest, no longer her only shield from the cold. Her breathing begins to change. It is still shallow, but no longer rushed. The fear in her eyes does not disappear, but it loosens its grip just enough for something else to surface beneath it. Confusion, wonder, a small, frightened spark of relief. She glances up at him again, this time holding his gaze for a fraction longer. There is no rush in his face, no expectation waiting behind his eyes, just a calm patience that makes the space between them feel less dangerous. Snow continues to drift quietly around them, landing on his shoulders, melting into the folds of the coat now wrapped around her. The street keeps moving. Cars pass. People laugh somewhere behind them. None of it demands her attention right now. She lifts the box slightly, testing its weight again, confirming that it is real. The heat pulses through the cardboard into her hands. Her fingers stop trembling as much. She does not say thank you. She does not know how yet. Words feel too fragile for a moment this big. Instead, she clutches the meal closer to her chest, instinctively protecting it, the way she once protected only the doll. He does not ask her name. He does not ask where she has been. He simply stays where he is, giving her time to accept that this is not a trick. The cold still surrounds them, but it no longer owns her the way it did a few moments ago. For the first time in a long while, she is warm without needing to hide. The warmth begins to reach places inside her that have been cold for so long she forgot they could hurt when they thawed. Her shoulders lower a fraction as the tension eases from them, and the tight line of her neck softens beneath the collar of the coat. She shifts her feet again, not from pain this time, but to settle into the new weight resting on her frame. The box in her hands grows warmer as the heat seeps steadily through the cardboard, and she cups it with both palms as though afraid to waste even the smallest breath of it. Keanu lets the silence rest between them without trying to fill it. He watches the way her breathing slows, the way her eyes flick back and forth as if trying to understand what has just happened and what it means. The streetlight casts a gentle glow over her hair, and for the first time, her face is no longer half hidden by shadow and glass. He notices the faint dirt along her cheek, the small cut near her knuckle, the way her fingers relax their white-knuckled grip on the doll now that the coat has taken over the job of sheltering her. She lifts the meal closer to her chest and inhales again, deeper this time, letting the scent reach her fully. The hunger inside her answers without apology. Her lips part slightly as if she might speak, then close again. The words do not come, but something else does. Her gaze meets his once more and stays there, steady, searching, uncertain, but no longer closed. It is the look of someone standing at the edge of a door she never believed would open. He gives her another small nod, not a command, not a question, just quiet encouragement that she is allowed to have this. The bell above the store rings again for someone else sending another brief wash of warmth across the sidewalk, but she barely notices it now. The warmth that matters is already wrapped around her shoulders and pulsing through her hands. The girl shifts the doll under one arm so she can hold the food more securely, and in that simple movement, something fragile inside her rearranges itself. She is no longer only a watcher on the outside of things. She is a girl, standing in the snow with a coat that fits her, and warmth she did not have to beg for. Keanu remains kneeling for another quiet moment, making sure the change has time to settle in her bones. When he finally begins to rise, he does so slowly, careful not to startle her again. For the first time that night, she does not shrink back at his movement. She simply stands there, in her new warmth eyes following him, heart no longer locked entirely behind fear, carrying a small, trembling certainty that something in her life has shifted in a way she cannot yet name. Keanu reaches back into the bag with the same quiet care he has used for everything else. His movements unhurried so the moment does not break. He lifts out the small Christmas tree still wrapped in its thin, protective sleeve, the branches pressed inward but waiting to breathe. He lowers it gently to the ground beside her, setting it upright on the snowy edge of the sidewalk where the light from the store window spills over it. Then he slides the sleeve away and lets the branches fall naturally into place. The tree is modest in size, barely reaching her waist, but it is perfectly shaped green and full, its needles catching tiny flecks of snow that sparkle like distant stars. He speaks softly, his voice steady and low, telling her that it is hers. The word seems to hang in the cold air between them as if it does not yet know where to land. Hers. The girl stares at the tree as though she has misheard him. Her eyes move slowly from the branches to his face and back again, searching for the trick, the condition, the moment when it will be taken away. She does not step closer at first. The coat around her shoulders is still warm. The food in her hands is still heavy and real. Yet, this feels different. This feels too fragile to touch. After a long breath, she shifts the doll under her arm and lowers the food enough to free one hand. Her fingers hover in the air between her and the tree, trembling from cold and hesitation. She reaches forward inch by inch until the tips of her fingers brush one small branch. The needles bend lightly beneath her touch. They prick her skin just enough to tell her this is not glass, not a reflection, not something meant only to be watched. It is real. The sensation shocks her breath loose from her chest in a soft, broken sound. Her hand stills where it is, fingers resting against green that does not disappear. Her eyes widen as if the world has quietly shifted its rules without telling her first. She has only ever seen trees through windows or behind fences, always glowing somewhere she could not enter. Now one stands beside her in the snow belonging to her. A tear slips free from the corner of her eye and tracks slowly down her cheek before she even realizes she is crying. Keanu remains still, watching without interrupting, without urging, without urgency of any kind. The traffic noise fades from her awareness. The laughter from inside dims to a distant echo. Even the snow seems to pause in its falling as she stands there with her fingers resting against the only Christmas tree she has ever been allowed to touch. Her fingers remain on the branch longer now, no longer hovering as if the tree might vanish beneath her touch. She presses slightly harder, feeling how the needles bend and spring back, feeling the rough texture of bark beneath the soft green. The tree answers her presence instead of rejecting it. That simple truth sends another quiet breath through her chest, slow and unsteady. She draws her hand back for a moment and looks at her fingertips as if expecting them to have changed. Then she touches the tree again, this time with the full curve of her palm, careful but braver. The cold of the needles meets the warmth returning to her skin from the coat, and the two sensations mingle in a way she has never known before. The doll slips farther down against her side, forgotten for a moment as the tree takes its place in her attention. Keanu watches her with the same quiet patience he has held from the beginning. He does not step closer. He does not explain anything more. He lets the meaning arrive at its own pace. Snow continues to rest on the branches in tiny white crowns, melting slowly as warmth from the nearby store window brushes against the needles. She notices the scent now, faint but clear. Pine, real and sharp and clean. It fills her nose and settles somewhere deep inside her chest. Her shoulders tremble once as another silent tear falls, then again softer this time. She brings the hand that is not holding the food up to wipe at her cheek in quick embarrassment, as if she has been caught doing something she is not meant to do in public. The tear leaves a clean track through the faint dirt on her skin. She takes another slow breath and lets it out carefully so it does not turn into a sob. The tree stands between them like a quiet bridge. In the reflection of the glass, the small tree beside her and the towering one inside overlap for a moment, their lights and shapes blending into a single image. For an instant, it feels as though the distance between inside and outside has folded in on itself. She glances at Keanu again with eyes that no longer look only guarded. Wonder threads through them now, thin but unmistakable. She does not yet fully believe the tree is hers, but her hands are beginning to accept what her mind cannot reach yet. The street around them grows indistinct. Cars pass without sound, voices blur into background warmth. The only thing that feels real is the steady weight of the coat, the heat of the food, and the living branch beneath her palm. Her hand lingers on the branch as if it is anchoring her to the moment, as if letting go might make the tree slip back into the world of glass and distance where it has always lived. The tiny needles press lightly into her skin, not enough to hurt, just enough to remind her that this is not a dream. She shifts the box of food slightly in her other arm, steadying its warmth against her ribs, and then inches closer to the tree without realizing she is doing it. The snow beneath her shoes crunches softly, a quiet sound that feels far away. The tree now stands fully within her space, no barrier between her and its scent, its rough trunk, its fragile living shape. She reaches out again, and this time traces the line of a branch from base to tip, with one careful finger following the gentle curve as if learning a new alphabet. A quiet sound escapes her throat, not quite a laugh, not quite a sob, just the sound of something inside her stretching for the first time in a long while. Another tear slips down her face, then another, and she does not bother to wipe them away now. Keanu remains still beside her, giving the moment the silence it deserves. He sees the way her shoulders rise and fall unevenly, the way the coat shifts with each breath. He sees how her grip on the food loosens now that her hands have found something else to hold. The city has not stopped, but it feels distant, muted, as if all the noise has moved behind thick walls. Snow continues to fall slower now, landing on the tree, and her hair and his coat in soft, drifting patterns. She finally draws her hand back and looks at her palm as if checking for proof that what she felt was real. Then she looks at the tree again, standing steady beside her, unshaken by the cold or by her touch. Her eyes lift to meet Keanu's once more, and this time there is no confusion in them, only a fragile clarity, as if she understands, without needing words, that something has been given to her without being taken from someone else. She nods once, very small, as if acknowledging a truth too large to say out loud. For the first time that night, she does not feel like she is only borrowing warmth from passing moments. The tree beside her stands as quiet proof that something new has entered her life and has chosen to stay. Keanu shifts slightly so he is no longer blocking the doorway, giving her a clear, open view of the entrance without forcing her toward it. He gestures gently with one hand, slow and small, the kind of motion that carries no command inside it. His voice stays low, calm, inviting her only to come inside for warmth, nothing more. The word warmth seems to land heavier than all the others. She stiffens at once. Her body reacts before her thoughts can catch up. The doorway looms larger now that it has been named. Her feet feel rooted to the cold sidewalk. Her shoulders tense beneath the new coat as fear rushes back in, sharp and fast. Doors have not been kind to her. Doors mean questions. Doors mean eyes that scan her from head to toe. Doors mean hands that point back toward the street. Her grip tightens on the box of food. The tree stands beside her like a quiet witness. The bell above the door is still. The glass reflects her small shape, wrapped in a coat that still feels unreal. Keanu does not touch her. He does not repeat the invitation. He simply waits at an easy distance, body turned slightly away so she does not feel trapped between him and the door. The street continues its motion behind her. A car passes. Footsteps fade. Snow drifts. Time stretches thin and careful. Inside the store, a few employees notice them through the glass. Their faces hold curiosity but no alarm. No one moves toward the door. No one comes to send her away. The silence presses in. Her chest tightens. Her past pulls at her hard, reminding her of every time she has stepped forward only to be pushed back. Her eyes drop to the line where sidewalk meets doorway. One side cold, one side warm. The boundary feels heavier than any wall. She draws a shaky breath and shifts the tree slightly with her foot so it does not tip. Her hand still smells faintly of pine. That gives her courage she does not fully understand. Her other hand steadies the food against her ribs. The warmth there steadies her. She lifts one foot slowly, the movement uncertain, almost painful in its hesitation. The sole of her shoe crosses the threshold first. Heat brushes against her ankle immediately. She freezes again, heart racing, waiting for the familiar voice to shout her back. No voice comes. The bell remains silent. She takes another breath and moves her second foot forward. The warmth closes around both legs, now immediate and full. Her shoulders lift in shock as the cold releases its grip, all at once. She stands just inside the doorway, trembling, waiting for rejection that does not arrive. The employees watch quietly from behind the counter. Shoppers pass without comment. Keanu remains beside her without triumph or relief on his face. For the first time in years, she has crossed a doorway and nothing terrible has followed. The warmth settles into her bones in slow, unfamiliar waves, heavier and deeper than the warmth of the coat alone. It rises from the floor through the thin soles of her shoes, wraps around her calves, climbs into her shoulders, and spreads across the back of her neck where the cold had lived for so long. Her body reacts as if it does not quite trust what is happening. Her hands tremble harder now, not from cold, but from the shock of relief. For a moment, she cannot move at all. The ceiling feels too high. The light feels too bright. The space feels too open. She keeps waiting for a sharp voice to cut through the soft music, for someone to notice her and decide she does not belong here after all. Her eyes dart quickly across the store, scanning faces the way she has learned to do outside. But the faces she sees are full of ordinary things: concentration, distraction, quiet cheer. A woman compares two scarves without looking up. A man lifts a box and turns it in his hands, undecided. A child tugs impatiently at his mother's sleeve. No one is staring at her. No one is pointing. No one is moving toward her with judgment in their eyes. The bell above the door remains silent. Her breathing begins to change again, shallow at first, then slower, steadier. Her shoulders drop a fraction as the tension eases just enough for her to feel how stiff they have been. She glances down at her feet, half expecting to see snow still clinging to them, half expecting to see the cold rush back in and take her warmth away. But the floor beneath her is dry and firm. She shifts her weight, carefully testing whether this place will hold her or push her back. It holds. The tree waits just outside beside the glass, visible through the window, its small, dark shape steady against the light. She clutches the food a little closer to her chest, unsure where to put it now that she is inside. Every sense feels overloaded. The scent of pine is thicker here, mixing with fabric and warmth, and faint traces of perfume from passing shoppers. Her ears ring softly with music that is no longer distant. It surrounds her now. She swallows hard as emotion tightens her throat again without warning. Crossing this doorway has never been allowed before. Inside has always meant trouble. Inside has always meant being seen too clearly. Yet nothing bad happens. Keanu remains beside her, not steering her farther in, not guiding her by the shoulders, simply present at the edge of her vision. His quiet steadiness anchors her as she stands in the middle of a place she once believed she could only watch through glass. For the first time in years, she is standing in warmth without having to hide. The fear does not vanish all at once. It loosens slowly like a knot that has been pulled tight for too many years. She takes one careful step farther inside, then another, each movement small and deliberate, as if the floor itself might change its mind and disappear beneath her. The warmth thickens around her with every inch she moves away from the door, sealing her inside a space where cold no longer dictates her breathing. Her grip on the food shifts as her fingers begin to relax, and she realizes with surprise that her hands no longer ache the way they did moments ago. The music that once felt muted now reaches her clearly soft and bright, at the same time weaving through the air around her. It feels strange to be surrounded by sound without needing to be alert for danger in it. She glances once more toward the door, half expecting it to open and send her back out the way she came, but it remains still indifferent, as if it has already accepted her presence as something ordinary. The employees who had watched quietly return to their tasks without comment. Their calm feels like permission. A quiet kind of permission she has never been given before. Her chest lifts with the trembling breath that almost becomes a sob, but she swallows it down, afraid that too much feeling might draw attention. The tree remains visible through the glass behind her, a small shadow against the brightness, reminding her that this is real and not something she imagined in the cold. Keanu finally takes one small step back, giving her space without withdrawing his presence entirely. The choice to stay or move forward is hers alone. She notices this, and something in her steadies. She is not being escorted. She is not being tolerated. She is simply allowed. The realization lands gently and then grows heavier with each second. She has crossed into a place that once felt forbidden, and nothing has been taken from her in return. The coat still warms her shoulders. The food still warms her hands. The fear still exists, but it no longer commands her body. She stands there between aisles of light and fabric and sound, a child who has only ever known the outside, now standing fully inside for the first time without being told to leave. And in that quiet, unannounced moment, something inside her shifts from survival to belonging. Keanu does not rush the next moment, but he does not let it drift either. When enough quiet has settled for her breathing to steady, he gently motions toward the door again. Not back into the cold chaos of the street, but toward a different destination. She feels the shift in the air before she understands it. The warmth of the store still clings to her coat as they step back outside together, the door closing softly behind them. The night greets her again with snow and cold, but it no longer feels as cruel as it did before. The coat guards her shoulders. The heat from the food still rests against her ribs. The small tree stands briefly in her vision through the glass as they turn away, and she carries its scent with her like a quiet promise. They walk side by side through streets brushed with snow's soft glow. He keeps his pace slow so she does not have to hurry. She stays half a step behind him at first, habit pulling her into shadow, but soon she finds herself matching his stride without realizing when it changed. The city feels different now, not because the lights are brighter, but because she is no longer standing still outside the warmth. As they move deeper into quieter streets, the noise fades gradually into a distant hum. Buildings grow lower, windows dim. Then ahead, tucked between brick walls and bare trees, a building glows with steady, gentle light. Not the sharp brightness of a store, but the kind that spills outward softly, like something meant to be found only by those who need it. He leads her toward it without ceremony. As they approach, the warmth from inside meets them through the cold air, carrying the unmistakable scent of soup and clean fabric. The doors open before they reach them. Inside, a woman looks up and smiles as if she has been expecting exactly this moment. Another steps forward with a folded blanket already in her arms. No one questions. No one hesitates. This is when she learns, without being told directly, that this place exists because he willed it to exist. That for years he has quietly kept it open, without his name on its walls. A place built for children who have learned not to ask. Her feet slow again at the entrance. The doorway feels heavy in that familiar way she knows too well. Fear rises once more, quick and sharp, tightening her chest. But the smell of soup drifts past her and wraps around her senses. The warmth inside presses forward, patient and steady. She looks at Keanu once more, searching for any sign that this too might disappear. He gives no speech. He simply waits. The staff wait with him. The doorway does not push her. And slowly, with a heart trembling between retreat and relief, she steps forward toward a place that does not ask her to prove anything before letting her in. The moment she crosses the threshold, the cold loses its grip on her completely. Warm air rises to meet her face, slipping beneath the edges of her coat and curling around her neck. The scent of soup grows stronger now, rich and earthy, mixed with the clean smell of fabric and soap. Her stomach answers with a sharp twist that makes her pause again, overwhelmed by how real everything feels. The woman with the blanket steps closer, her movements slow and open, as careful as Keanu's had been earlier. She drapes the blanket around the girl's shoulders without asking questions, tucking it gently beneath the collar of the coat so the warmth layers upon warmth. The girl's breath catches again, softer this time, not from shock, but from something close to relief. Another staff member slides a chair back near a long wooden table and sets a steaming bowl of soup in front of it, as if the place has been waiting for her all along. No one asks her name yet. No one asks where she has been. Their kindness arrives without conditions attached to it. That makes her more nervous than any shouting ever has. Kindness without a price feels unreal to her, like warmth that might turn cold at the slightest mistake. She glances back once toward the door, as if measuring the distance she might need to flee. But the door stands quietly closed behind her, now sealing out the night without sealing her in. The room hums with soft life. A few children sit at the table farther down, wrapped in blankets, speaking in low, tired voices. One laughs quietly, the sound muffled but real. Someone stirs a pot in the kitchen area, the spoon tapping lightly against metal in an easy rhythm. The lights overhead are gentle, not glaring. The girl edges closer to the chair but does not sit yet. Her hands still clutch the boxed meal, as if someone might take it back. The woman with the soup nods encouragingly toward the bowl, then steps away to give her space. Keanu remains near the doorway, not intruding on the moment, but not abandoning it either. She lowers herself slowly onto the chair, the blanket slipping more securely around her shoulders as she does. The heat rising from the soup fogs her vision for a moment. She lifts one trembling hand and hovers it over the bowl, feeling the warmth push back against her skin. The smell makes her chest ache with need and with something dangerously close to hope. She has not yet tasted, the food has not yet let herself believe, but she is sitting at a table inside a place that does not look like it wants to disappear. For the first time in the night, she is not standing in a doorway, wondering whether she will be turned away. She lifts the spoon only after the steam has fogged her eyes and forced her to blink, and even then her hand shakes as if the warmth might spill and vanish. The first taste is careful, almost fearful, but the heat fills her mouth and spreads through her chest in a way that makes her shoulders sag with sudden exhaustion. The woman nearby smiles without saying anything and turns back toward the kitchen. No one watches her eat. No one counts her bites. That freedom feels strange and overwhelming. Keanu remains standing quietly near the entrance, close enough that she can still find him with her eyes if doubt surges again. One of the other children glances at her briefly, then looks back to their own bowl without curiosity or judgment. That small detail settles something inside her. She eats a little faster now, hunger finally allowed to speak, without being silenced by fear. The boxed meal rests unopened beside her, waiting for later, and for the first time, she realizes there can be a later. The blanket slips a little as she leans forward, and she pulls it tighter without thinking, claiming its warmth as if it belongs to her. Outside, snow continues to fall against the building's windows, quiet and distant. Inside, the night has changed its shape. She eats slowly, carefully, as if the warmth in the bowl might vanish if she moves too fast. Each spoonful is lifted with deliberate patience, her fingers still unsteady as they adjust to being warm instead of numb. The soup is simple, but to her it feels endless. Steam rises and fogs her eyes again and again, forcing her to blink through the heat and the unfamiliar feeling of being full. No one rushes her. No one tells her to hurry. A staff member returns quietly with a small basin of warm water and a soft cloth. She flinches at first instinct, pulling her back, but the woman's movements are slow and gentle. The cloth touches her hands, lightly wiping away dirt, and cold without judgment. The water is warm. The sensation makes her inhale sharply, then slowly exhale as her fingers relax beneath the touch. Her hands look different when they are clean, lighter somehow. Another staff member lays out folded clothes on the nearby chair, clean clothes in her size, soft fabric, no holes. The sight of them makes her freeze again, unsure what to do. The woman only nods and steps back, leaving the choice with her. She eats a few more careful bites before she slips from the chair and changes behind a simple screen. The clothes feel strange against her skin, too soft, too light. When she returns, wrapped once more in the blanket, she does not speak. Words still feel unsafe. Her eyes stay wide as she looks around the room, taking in details as if she must memorize everything before it disappears. From a quiet corner near the doorway, Keanu watches without entering her space. He does not direct anyone. He does not stand close. He waits until he sees the bowl nearly empty, until he sees her hands clean, and her shoulders finally slacken with fatigue. Then he steps back toward the door without announcing it. The girl notices the movement too late. By the time she looks up, he is already in the snowfall beyond the glass. She hesitates, unsure, then lifts her hand slowly and gives a small, uncertain wave, as if asking permission to be seen one last time. The door closes softly behind him, and the sound feels different now than it did earlier in the night. It is not the sharp cut of warmth, leaving not the signal of being pushed back into the cold. It is simply the sound of someone stepping away after making sure everything is in place. The girl's raised hand lingers in the air for a moment. After he is gone, fingers still slightly curled in the shape of the wave she was unsure she was allowed to give. Slowly, she lowers it back into the blanket around her shoulders. The room does not change when he leaves. The lights remain steady. The soup remains warm. The people remain kind. That consistency feels almost unreal to her. A staff member quietly takes the empty bowl and replaces it with a small cup of warm tea, setting it within easy reach without speaking. The girl wraps both hands around it, letting the heat seep into her palms again. Fatigue settles over her now that the hunger has eased heavy and sudden, as if her body has finally noticed how long it has been carrying itself alone. Her eyelids grow heavy, blinking slower each time. Another child nearby shifts in their chair and glances at her with a faint, tired smile. She returns it without thinking, the movement small but natural. The blanket slips lower on her shoulders as sleep pulls at her, and a woman gently lifts it back into place without waking her fully. The girl does not flinch this time. She only exhales and leans into the warmth. Outside, snow continues to fall across the quiet street, but the cold no longer reaches her. Inside, she drifts between wake and sleep, holding the last warmth of the night in her hands and the quiet certainty that she will not be chased from this place before morning. Sleep finally claims her in gentle stages, not all at once, but in soft waves that pull her under without fear. Her head tips forward slightly, then settles back as her body gives in to rest. It is not trusted for a long time. The cup of tea cools gradually between her hands as her fingers loosen their grip, and a staff member quietly lifts it away before it can spill. The blanket is drawn higher around her shoulders, covering her small frame completely now, and she does not stir. Her breathing deepens into a slow, steady rhythm that fills the space around her with quiet proof that she is safe. In the hallway beyond, soft footsteps move without urgency. A door opens and closes somewhere down the corridor. The night continues outside, but inside this room, time feels suspended in a kinder shape. The small bag with her few belongings rests at her feet. The doll lies tucked against her side, no longer her only comfort, but still welcomed into the warmth with her. For the first time in her life, she is sleeping without one ear turned toward danger. The people around her move with quiet confidence, as if they have seen this moment many times and never take it for granted. Beyond the walls, snow blankets the city in silence. But here in this hidden place, meant only for children like her, the night becomes something new. Not a test to survive, but a promise to rest within. Outside, the city pours itself into celebration without pause. Music spills from open doors and crowded halls. Glasses clink. Laughter rises and falls in warm waves that drift through snow-filled streets. Fireworks crack faintly in the distance, bright and unreachable. Inside the shelter, the noise never arrives. Here, the night moves differently. The girl sleeps in a small bed tucked against the wall, wrapped in clean blankets that carry the faint scent of soap and warmth. The pillow beneath her head is soft enough that her cheek sinks into it instead of pressing against brick or cardboard. Her hair fans across the fabric in loose dark strands, no longer stiff with cold. The small Christmas tree stands beside the bed on a low table, its green branches steady and quiet in the dim light. A single, soft lamp glows from the corner of the room, not bright enough to wake her, just enough to keep the dark from feeling heavy. The doll rests at her side, one cracked eye turned toward the ceiling, as if standing watch while she rests. On the chair near the bed, her winter coat hangs neatly, sleeves folded inward as if holding warmth for when she wakes. Somewhere down the hall, a door closes softly. Footsteps pass and fade. A muted murmur of voices drifts past without entering the room. The girl breathes slowly and deeply now, no longer shallow and alert, no longer counting each breath as a measure of survival. Her chest rises and falls in a rhythm she does not need to control. Time inside the shelter has no urgency. It stretches gently around her, carrying her through a kind of night she has never known before. The city celebrates without knowing what it has missed. No cameras point here, no cheers reach this room, yet something far more powerful unfolds in this quiet space. A child who once stood outside glass now sleeps inside warmth without fear following her into her dreams. She stirs sometime in the deep of the night, pulled suddenly out of sleep by a sharp, familiar fear that she has learned never to ignore. Her eyes fly open at once, heart pounding hard against her ribs, as if she has been dropped back into the street without warning. For a few disoriented seconds, she does not know where she is. The ceiling looks too high. The air feels too still. The blanket is too heavy. Panic rushes up fast and hot, telling her this must have been a dream, that the warmth was borrowed, that the food, the coat, the kindness were only things her mind created to survive the cold. Her hands clutch at the blanket as she tries to sit up, breath quick and shallow again. The old instinct screams that she must run before the morning proves everything false. Then her gaze lands on the small table beside the bed. The tree stands there, in the soft light exactly where it was left. Its branches cast faint, patient shadows against the wall. She freezes. Her eyes slide slowly from the tree to the chair near the bed. The dark winter coat still hangs there, solid and quiet, exactly as it was when she fell asleep. The room is warm, not imagined warm, real warm. The air does not bite. Her shoulders are not shaking. Her fingers are not numb. The panic falters confused. She draws one careful breath, then another, testing the truth of it. Nothing disappears. The tree does not vanish. The coat does not fade. The warmth does not retreat. A small sound escapes her throat, halfway between a sob and a laugh she does not yet know how to make. She reaches out from the bed and lightly touches the edge of the blanket, needing to feel it one more time. The fabric answers her touch without leaving. Only then does the fear begin to loosen its grip reluctantly, as if it does not trust this night any more than she does. She lies back slowly, eyes still wide, but no longer frightened. The room holds steady around her. The lamp glows. The tree stands faithful in the corner. The coat waits on the chair like a quiet promise. Her breath eases into a slower rhythm as the truth settles in her chest. This night is real. This warmth is staying. She draws the blanket up to her chin and curls slightly on her side, the doll tucked against her ribs. Sleep returns gently, careful not to startle her again. Outside, snow continues to fall, but it no longer reaches her tonight. Christmas morning arrives without announcement, slipping quietly into the shelter on pale winter light and the soft hush of falling snow. The girl wakes before anyone calls out or footsteps stir the hallway. For a moment, she lies very still beneath the blanket, listening to the silence, unsure if she is allowed to move first in a place like this. The room feels different in daylight, gentle, open, real. She sits up slowly, careful not to disturb the warmth that has gathered around her through the night. The little tree still stands beside her bed, its branches catching the faint glow from the window. Snow drifts past the glass in slow, lazy patterns. The world outside feels far away, as if it belongs to another life she once lived. The door opens softly, and one of the staff steps in with a quiet smile, carrying a small cardboard box tied with thin string. She sets it on the table beside the tree and nods gently before leaving without saying a word. The girl stares at the box for a few seconds before reaching for it with hands that still tremble from disbelief more than cold now. The lid lifts easily. Inside are simple ornaments, nothing bright or expensive, just small pieces that feel chosen with care. At the very bottom rests a tiny star, pale and soft, glowing faintly when it catches the light. Her breath catches the same way it did the night before, when her fingers first touched green needles. She lifts the star carefully between her fingers, afraid that holding it too tightly might make this morning disappear. The tree feels smaller in the daylight, closer, more hers. She rises from the bed slowly and stands in front of it, stretching upward on unsteady feet. Her hands shake as she reaches for the highest branch she can touch. The star hooks into place with a quiet click. She steps back once it is secure. The star glows softly above her tree, small but steady. Her first decoration. Her first mark on a future that did not exist for her yesterday. She stands there for a long moment after placing the star, hands lowered slowly to her sides, as if she is afraid that even moving too quickly might undo what she has just done. The tree feels different now that something of hers rests at its top. It no longer feels like a gift that might be taken back. It feels claimed. The quiet in the room wraps around her, gently broken only by the distant hum of the building waking up. Somewhere down the hallway, a door opens. Soft footsteps pass. The smell of breakfast drifts faintly through the air, warm and unfamiliar in the morning. She glances once at the star again, then at the coat still hanging neatly on the chair, then at the bed she slept in through the night without waking in fear. Each detail feels unreal in its steadiness. She touches the edge of the blanket once more, needing reassurance that the softness is still there. It is. Her fingers linger on the fabric before she slowly draws them back. She sits on the edge of the bed, feet resting on the warm floor, trying to understand how a life can turn so suddenly without asking permission. The doll rests where she left it, its cracked eye turned toward the tree, now as if sharing in the light. She lifts it and sets it gently on the table, beneath the branches, giving it a place of honor it has never had before. For the first time, she is not protecting it from the world. She is showing it the world. Her chest tightens again, not with fear this time, but with something softer and heavier all at once. The star above the tree does not flicker. It holds its glow in calm defiance of everything she once believed about how quickly good things vanish. She exhales slowly and lets the breath go without guarding it. For the first time in her life, the morning does not feel like a warning. It feels like an invitation. She remains seated for a while, watching the tiny star glow above the branches as daylight slowly strengthens around the room. Snow continues to fall outside the window, softer now, slower, as if the world itself has decided to move gently today. Her fingers rest in her lap, still no longer clenched for defense. The sounds of the shelter waking grow clearer. Quiet voices, distant footsteps, the promise of breakfast. She takes one long breath and lets it fill her completely. For the first time, the future does not feel like an empty word. It feels like something waiting. Breakfast smells fill the shelter in slow, welcoming waves, carrying warmth through the halls long before the plates arrive. The girl follows the sound of soft voices and clinking dishes into the common room. Her steps still quiet, but no longer hesitant. She carries the tray with both hands, as she has learned to do, but this time her shoulders are not drawn up around her ears. Children sit along the long table wrapped in sweaters and blankets, their faces brighter in the morning light. She pauses at the edge, unsure where to sit, until a woman gently guides her to an open chair near the middle. As she settles into place, a hand rests briefly on her shoulder in a way that carries no pressure, only reassurance. Someone across the table smiles at her. Another child slides a napkin closer. The simple kindness makes her chest tighten again in that unfamiliar way. Then the woman beside her bends slightly and speaks her name aloud for the first time in this place. Her name is spoken softly, carefully, as if it matters. The sound lands differently than it ever has before. It does not feel like a call shouted through danger. It feels like an invitation. She hears it, and something inside her answers before fear can intercept it. She nods once, a small confirmation, and the woman smiles as if the name itself has opened a door. Breakfast continues around her with quiet chatter. She lifts her spoon and eats without rushing, tasting the food instead of guarding it. Laughter ripples down the table from one end to the other, light and sudden. She glances up instinctively at first, as she always has, checking the room for threat. But there is no sharp voice waiting. No doors slam. No one moves to stop the sound. The laughter persists, easy and unafraid. Then, without planning to, she laughs too. The sound startles her so much that she covers her mouth with one hand, eyes wide in surprise at herself. It slips out again, softer this time, and she lets it stay. She does not look at the door when she laughs. The broken doll is not in her arms. It waits quietly by the little tree in her room, no longer her shield against the world, but a piece of the story she is beginning to live. The laughter fades into gentle conversation, and she listens more than she speaks, learning the rhythm of voices around the table. Names drift past her, some spoken with confidence, others with shyness still clinging to the edges. For the first time, she is not the only quiet one in the room. A boy across from her asks if she likes the eggs. She nods and answers softly, surprised that her voice sounds steady. Another child offers her a piece of toast without hesitation. She accepts it without fear that it will be taken back. The food is warm and simple, but every bite feels like proof that this morning is real. The woman who spoke her name earlier reaches over and pours a little more milk into her cup without asking. The small gesture settles something deep in her chest. Her name is used again, gently this time, as someone asks if she would like more fruit. The sound of it begins to feel less fragile with each use, as if it is strengthening through repetition. She does not flinch when she hears it now. She answers without looking down. Around her, forks scrape softly. Mugs clink. A child at the end of the table tells a story that makes several of them laugh at once. The warmth of the room carries those sounds easily. She realizes she is no longer counting exits. The door remains just a door, not an escape. The broken doll does not sit in her lap. Instead, her hands rest openly on the table, fingers relaxed free to reach for what is offered. When breakfast ends and chairs scrape back, she rises with the others instead of waiting for permission. For the first time, she is moving with a group instead of hiding from it. Her name follows her into the hallway, not as a warning, not as a demand, but as a welcome that seems to grow sturdier with every step. She returns to her room afterward and pauses at the doorway, looking at the small tree with the star glowing gently above it. The broken doll waits beside it, settled and calm, no longer clutched like armor. She crosses the room and touches the doll once, not to protect herself, but as if greeting an old part of her that no longer has to stand guard. Her name echoes softly in her mind again, not as something fragile, but as something steady. For the first time, she understands that this new beginning is not watching her from behind glass. It is calling her forward. Snow still drifts lightly through the afternoon when Keanu returns, approaching the shelter from across the street with the same quiet steps he used the night before. He does not wear anything that draws attention. No cameras follow. No one recognizes him. The building looks different in daylight, less hidden now that the world is awake, yet it still carries that soft, steady glow behind its windows. He stops at the curb and waits, hands tucked into the pockets of his coat, breath rising in slow white clouds that fade as quickly as they form. Through the glass, he can see movement inside. Children pass through the hallway in small clusters. A staff member crosses the common room carrying a tray. The room hums with ordinary life. Then he sees her. She stands near the table where her small tree now rests, its star glinting faintly, even in daylight. She is not wrapped in fear the way she was the night before. Her shoulders are relaxed. Her hands move freely as she reaches for something just out of frame. Another child steps close to her and says something that makes her pause, then smile. The smile is real. It lifts her face without hesitation. It shows teeth without caution. She laughs, and the sound travels easily through the room, unguarded by worry. Keanu remains still across the street, eyes fixed on the window. He watches her lift a small ornament and carefully hang it on one of the tree's lower branches. She steps back to examine it with the same seriousness she once used to examine danger. The difference is everything. She eats a few bites from a plate someone sets beside her and nods in thanks without shrinking. He feels the tension he has carried since the night before finally begin to loosen, not with celebration, not with triumph, with relief. The quiet kind of relief that arrives only when you see that something fragile has truly taken root. He does not step closer to the glass. He does not lift a hand. He stands where he is, letting distance protect the simplicity of the moment. The street around him moves as usual. A car rolls past tires, hissing softly over wet pavement. Two strangers pause at the corner to talk, then part ways without noticing him. Life continues in the open, while something quieter unfolds behind the shelter window. Inside, the girl shifts from one foot to the other as she adjusts the ornaments on her tree. Her movements unhurried, unafraid. Another child bumps into her by accident and immediately apologizes. She answers with a small grin instead of flinching backward. That single exchange tells him more than any words could. She is no longer measuring every interaction for danger. She is learning the rhythm of safety. A staff member bends beside her and points to a higher branch. The girl nods and reaches up without hesitation, standing on her toes to hang another decoration. Her coat is gone now, folded neatly elsewhere for later. In its place, she wears clean clothes that fit her frame, without hanging loose or clinging in shame. He barely recognizes her as the same child who stood frozen outside the glass the night before. The change is not loud. It is subtle, carried in posture, in breath, in the way her hands move without clutching at anything for protection. She eats again slower now, not because she is afraid the food will vanish, but because she is talking between bites. The plate empties naturally, not urgently. He lets out a slow breath he did not know he was holding. For the first time since he turned back into the store the night before, uncertainty releases its grip on his chest. What he hoped for has taken shape. What he gave has not been swallowed by fear or chance. It has found a place to live. He allows himself one small smile, barely more than a soft easing at the corner of his mouth. It is not pride. It is not satisfaction. It is simply the quiet relief of seeing a life step out of danger and into light without needing him anymore. He shifts his weight, takes one last look through the glass, and then turns away. No goodbye, no announcement. The work that mattered is already finished. As he walks back into the city crowd, the shelter behind him continues to glow, holding laughter, warmth, and a small tree with a star that no longer belongs to the cold outside. The evening settles gently over the shelter as Christmas night returns, in quiet form, softer than the celebration outside. In her room, the girl sits on the edge of her bed with the small tree beside her, its branches steady, its star holding a calm light. She is no longer pressed against cold glass. She is no longer counting the warmth she cannot reach. The door is simply a door now, not a barrier. The window is only a window, not a divide. She touches the tree once, not in disbelief this time, but in recognition. It is here. It is hers. The doll rests nearby, no longer clutched in defense, only kept for memory. The blanket is folded at her feet. The room smells faintly of soap and pine. Outside the hallway, Voices pass and fade without danger in them. She lies back and watches the small star glow without wondering when it will disappear. Somewhere in the city, crowds lift glasses and cheer. Here, no one is performing joy. It simply exists quiet and steady. The child who once stood outside life is now inside it, breathing without hurry. The tree does not belong to a store window anymore. It does not belong to a promise that failed. It belongs to a night that kept its word. The power of it is not in its size. It is in what it replaced. One choice turned back toward a door instead of away from it. One step returned instead of continued. One quiet act that made room for a child to stop surviving and begin resting. The girl closes her eyes with the tree beside her, not watching happiness pass by, but holding it close enough to feel its warmth shape her dreams. Tonight, it finally belongs to her. The night outside moves on with its usual noise and shimmer, but none of it calls to her anymore. Fireworks bloom somewhere beyond the shelter walls, distant and muffled, like memories that no longer command her attention. Inside her room, the world has grown small in the best possible way. The bed beneath her is steady. The blankets hold their warmth. The tree stands like a quiet witness to everything that has changed without fanfare. For years, she learned to measure life in distances she was not allowed to cross. Glass between her and heat, doors between her and safety, windows between her and belonging. Tonight, all of those distances have collapsed into inches she can reach with one small hand. The memory of the cold sidewalk feels far away now, like something that happened in another lifetime to another girl. She shifts beneath the blanket and turns slightly on her side, facing the star at the top of her tree. Its small glow is steady and patient, not bright enough to glare, not weak enough to fade. It reminds her of the first time her name was spoken without fear wrapped around it, of the first chair she sat in without waiting for permission, of the first laugh that escaped without her checking every corner of the room. These firsts stack quietly inside her, one on top of another, building something new, without announcing it as construction. She does not think in big words like future or destiny. She only knows that tomorrow exists now in a way it never did before. The tree does not promise what will happen next. It does not need to. It simply stands where it was placed, faithful and unafraid, teaching her that belonging does not have to be loud to be real. She drifts toward sleep again with that quiet certainty settled in her chest, not the sharp exhaustion of cold nights, but the gentle weight of rest that expects to continue. Her hands no longer search the dark for walls or exits. They rest easily against the blanket, fingers loose, unguarded. The tree beside her holds its place without flicker, its branches still, its star steady. Outside, the city will wake again with its noise and speed and endless movement. But for her, the measure of life has already changed. It is no longer counted in footsteps between doorways or in hours spent standing where warmth cannot reach. It is counted in simple things now. A bed that stays beneath her, a name that stays with her, a small tree that stays where she placed it. Somewhere far beyond these walls, the man who turned back that night continues his life without applause or witness, carrying nothing with him but the knowledge that one quiet decision mattered. She does not know his name. She does not need to. The proof of that moment stands right beside her, small but unshakable. The glass that once separated her from everything she wanted is no longer between her and the world. Tonight, she is not watching light from the outside. She is falling asleep inside it. Somewhere tonight, long after the lights in the shelter dim, and the small tree beside the bed holds its steady glow, there are still windows across the world where warmth lives just beyond reach. There are still children standing in the cold, watching joy through glass, believing that what they see is not meant for them. Christmas will continue to shine in store displays and city squares loud with color and music and movement. But the true weight of this season is rarely found in what is shown. It lives in what is chosen when no one is watching. It lives in the moments that turn quietly instead of loudly. One person, one pause, one decision to turn back instead of walking on. That is how lives are rewritten without ceremony. Not with speeches, not with recognition, only with seeing. Keanu did not change the world that night. He changed one night for one child, and that was enough to change everything for her. The warmth she felt did not come from lights or decorations. It came from being noticed when she believed she was invisible. It came from being welcomed where she expected to be sent away. It came from being given something that did not ask to be earned first. Somewhere in the world right now, someone stands where she once stood, believing that the glass will never open, believing that warmth is always meant for someone else. And somewhere not far away, someone else holds the power to turn back, to stop, to kneel down, to see. The miracle was never the coat, or the food, or the tree. The miracle was the choice to care without needing a reason. As this story settles into your heart tonight, think of the unseen lives passing your path every day. Think of the quiet eyes in crowds, the small hands gripping hope gently so it does not break. Who might be standing just outside your warmth, believing the answer is already no? And if you turned back just once, who might finally step inside because of you? There are moments in life that never make the news and never earn applause, yet they travel farther than anything announced with noise. A stranger turns back, a hand lowers to the level of another life. A door opens without condition. These moments change the shape of futures in ways that cannot be traced on any map. The girl who once pressed her breath to glass now sleeps with warmth settled around her shoulders and a small star lighting her dreams. That did not happen because the world suddenly became kind. It happened because one person refused to let a single moment pass unnoticed. Christmas has always tried to teach this truth quietly, beneath the noise of celebration. It is not the season of what we show. It is the season of what we choose when no one is counting. It is not the giving that draws eyes. It is the giving that happens without witness. The handoff in the dark, the pause in the street, the step taken back towards someone who never expected it. These are the places where real change begins. Long after decorations come down and streets return to ordinary light, the effects of those quiet decisions remain. A child grows without fear, tightening their breath each night. A life moves forward instead of turning in circles. A memory of kindness becomes a foundation rather than a question. And the person who chose to care carries on without needing proof that it mattered, trusting that the warmth they placed into the world will find its way where it is needed. The smallest acts often travel the longest distances. They move through years instead of streets. They echo inside people instead of crowds. What began as a silent moment between two strangers now lives on in every steady breath that child takes in safety. This is how the world truly shifts. Not through noise, but through quiet decisions that refuse to look away. If this story has shown anything, it is that miracles rarely arrive with thunder. They arrive with footsteps that almost pass and then stop, with a glance that lingers instead of turning away, with a decision made in silence. Somewhere tonight, a small tree glows beside a child who once believed warmth was only something other people were allowed to touch. That change did not come from wealth, fame, or attention. It came from noticing. It came from choosing to care when it would have been easier to keep walking. And that truth is not kept for one man or one night. It belongs to all of us. Every day in quiet corners of grocery stores, on cold sidewalks, in tired classrooms, in lonely waiting rooms, someone is standing outside a window, hoping not to be seen, because being seen has always led to pain. Somewhere close by, someone else is holding the power to turn back, not with grand gestures, not with perfect words, just with a moment of courage to see what others hurry past. The question is never whether the world has enough need. It always does. The question is simpler and more personal. Who have you walked by lately? Who is standing just beyond your warmth, believing the answer is already no? And if you paused for 1 second, if you chose not to look away, whose life might quietly change because of you? If this story touched you, take a moment to reflect on the unseen lives in your own path. And if you have an idea for another Keanu Reeves story you would like to experience, share it in the comments. Sometimes the next miracle begins with a single suggestion.